Story by Zandrique, A Winning Dream. As a kid, my parents played the lottery weekly. I also couldn't keep a clock in my room because the light from a digital clock kept me awake, and the sound from an analog clock kept me awake. If I couldn't sleep, I'd walk across the hall to my parents' room to see what time it was. One night, I woke up standing in my parents' room, as though I had slept. I had had a dream about the lottery that had confused me. It was early December. I remember the clock said 4:11 a.m. Later, I asked my mom what happened as she drove me to school, and she told me that I had said that we'd win the lottery, and then I started crying. Well, my parents won the lottery. Not the jackpot, but they won around $30,000. We had a lovely Christmas that year and went to Disneyland in February. My grandma made me pick numbers and scratch lottery tickets after that. We had a lucky streak for a little while. Yeah, so 30,000 might not be the jackpot, but that's still really nice. What would you do if you won 30 grand? It's not enough to just retire and quit, but it's enough to have a good time. I mean, obviously for me, I would get more food. Not that I don't already have a lot of food, but just, up it another level. More steaks and lobsters and... I mean, not lobster. Lobster is good, but definitely more cakes. Yeah, pies. Turnovers are really good. Blueberry turnovers are amazing. I really ought to learn how to bake those because they're more expensive than they need to be if you buy them from Walmart. Great value. No, it's freshness guaranteed. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore, but yeah, more food, obviously, with 30 grand. And it's funny. If I did win like a life-changing amount of money, enough to just not have to work anymore, even $1 million would be more than enough, but I would still continue these stories, honestly. Probably wouldn't keep as strict a schedule, but I would still do them. Yeah, quite often. It's just fun, bringing them to life and talking about them. It's fun, and not a lot of people get to do something that they find fun. Even if there's still a lot of editing work and all that is mundane, the final output is well worth it, and that's just, I am blessed. Welcome. I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 10 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. My favorite story at the end, as always. Let's get to it. Story by Ambitious Problem, 4746. Brown Eyes in an Old Song. To begin, we have to go back to the day our oldest was born. The hospital room felt like it existed in its own small pocket of time. Monitors hummed, nurses moved in and out with efficiency, and outside the window, the city kept going like the biggest event wasn't happening right now and here. My wife was exhausted but glowing, half in shock and half in love. We'd been waiting for this little girl for months, and when they finally laid her on my wife's chest, nothing else in the universe mattered one bit. If you're not a parent yet, there are no words that can possibly convey the feeling of seeing your child for the first time. But to the incredible mystery, I don't remember exactly when I noticed the music. There was a small radio on the windowsill that someone had left on low, probably for background noise during labor to battle against the screams of pain. At some point, brown-eyed girl came drifting out of it, not loud, just very softly there. Van Morrison's voice, that easy guitar, the part where he sings about making love in the green grass. Wholesome. I glanced at my wife to see if she'd caught it too. But she was looking at our daughter and only at her. That was her entire world at that moment, tracing one tiny ear with her finger. She never mentioned it later, and when I brought it up months afterward, she swore she hadn't heard a thing. Maybe she really didn't. Birth is loud in its own internal way too. We'd talked about her dad plenty over the years. She was 10 when he died. It was sudden, and it had split her childhood into pieces. She still had a few clear memories, him teaching her to ride a bike, how he'd whistle when he was fixing something around the house, and especially the living room dances. He'd put that song on the old stereo, scoop her up, and they'd spin around the coffee table while her mom watched from the couch, laughing. Reminds me of that Harry Potter scene with Harry and Hermione, but not full of melancholy, the opposite. My wife says she can still feel the way his hands felt under her arms, that the room would blur a little when he turned her. That's the memory she reaches for most often. Her mom keeps the same ritual alive. Whenever Brown-Eyed Girl comes on the radio now, whether we're at a restaurant or just driving somewhere, my wife and her mom catch each other's eye. It's never dramatic. Just a small smile, a little shake of the head, like they're sharing a private joke only they understand. Her mom will usually say something soft like, "Your dad's checking in on you, honey." My wife rolls her eyes, but she smiles anyway. It's become one of those little inside family note things, intensely personal. When our second daughter arrived 2 years later, I went to pick up my mother-in-law so she could meet the baby. It was early evening, a very sticky summer day, making the car feel like an oven, even with the AC running. I pulled up in front of her house, and she came out carrying a small bag of baby clothes she'd been saving. We got in, buckled up, and I turned the key. The radio came on automatically, same station it always defaults to, and there it was again. Brown-Eyed Girl. Same song. My wife's soul song, if you will. At the same moment, we were heading to the hospital to meet another granddaughter. I didn't say anything right away. Just drove. My mother-in-law heard it too. I saw her glance at the dashboard, then out the window. She had a little smile tugging at her mouth. Neither of us made a big deal out of it. We didn't need to. My wife still doesn't buy any of it. She says coincidences happen, that hospitals and cars have radios, that songs get played all the time. She wasn't in the car for the second one, and she insists she never registered the song during the first birth. I don't push it. She's always been the practical one between us, if I'm honest. But every so often, I catch her rocking one of the girls in the dim nursery light, or folding laundry with the baby monitor crackling beside her, and she's humming it under her breath. The same melody her dad used to play. Sometimes she'll sing the words softly when she thinks no one's listening. "You're my brown-eyed girl." The girls are still little. They don't know the story yet. One day they will. For now, they just know that when that song comes on in the car or on the kitchen speaker, their mom gets a faraway look for a second, then smiles and keeps moving. And their grandma, when she visits, will catch her daughter's eye across the room and say the same gentle thing she's been saying for years. I don't know what any of it means, if it means anything at all. But I've stopped trying to decide. Some things just sit there between the ordinary and the impossible. The song still plays sometimes when we're all together, and when it does, the room brightens. This reminds me of the Irish pub story I read not that long ago. It was where someone's friend had died, and there was a specific song that played relating to them when they went into the pub. Something to that effect. I'm sure I'm misremembering some things, but it's touching. And there's something about music that connects us in ways we don't really understand. I mean, even there's actual fields of science that try to study why we even care about music. Why does it move our souls and play the violin with our soul? You know, it's just something magical that is ethereal and beyond our current comprehension. But yet, there it is, and we can just enjoy it and try to embrace its magic. And it's funny I say that as someone who doesn't really listen to music on its own. I view music kind of like a spice, something that enhances a dish that's already there, like a movie or a TV show or a video game. Like the Halo theme song is truly wondrous, has such oomph to it, and I think as anyone growing up in the 90s and 2000s probably was subject to that theme song, so that'll always have a place by your heart. And also, the Final Fantasy VII boss music, God, that is intense. And then of course you go to the Lord of the Rings orchestra. That is one exception where I can just put the YouTube video of that orchestra playing and just be immersed in it. It's very rare I can enjoy, it's more of a side dish than a herb for that one. And also the Harry Potter music. Those are two that on their own truly stand as almost like objects. They're material. They're necessary to the story. They're not just complementing it. Oh, an Interstellar soundtrack. Oh my god. But to this story, I don't know if it is possible for someone that we love to send or relay a song that relates to them or their connection. I like to think it. It does make sense, per the stories that I'm reading. That is a possibility. The rules governing what can be done after one dies, again, ignoring quantum immortality, they seem to be all over the place. It doesn't seem like people can just appear at all times, all the time. Why not just hang out with your daughter, your children, or your mom or dad, or whoever it might be that you're still connected to? If you could. Clearly, there's something that prevents that, and you have to be more subtle about it, usually. I don't know what the rules are. Maybe we're not supposed to know. Story by Sonic Sync, Across the Frozen Dark. This happened to me a few weeks ago. I am up in Canada, and we have a good bit of snow. It was about 10 p.m., and I was coming home from work through a very rural area, when ahead, in the dim light of my headlights, I saw something that looked like a snowball slide across the road to the snowbank on the right. As I got closer, I saw that it actually started to climb up the bank, except there was no head or tail to be seen. I hit my brakes to reverse to look, but it took a while for me to stop. And by the time I would have reversed to the spot, whatever it was would have made its way into the wood line, which was just a few feet away from the bank. I told my husband about it when I got home and couldn't get the image of that thing climbing up the bank out of my head. I'm driving down the same road, but a different stretch with my husband in the car. It's around 5:30 to 6 p.m., so it's just starting to get dark, but not completely dark. Suddenly, something looking like a snowball comes flying off a snowbank on the right, this time with an open field behind it, and skids across the road. My husband yells out, "Did you hit it?" We kept trying to figure out how it could have jumped from the snowbank and skidded across the road. There was a car ahead of us, so at first we thought maybe it was a chunk of slush that fell off the wheel well. But the car was too far ahead, and the snow thing came flying from the right side. It also wasn't at all windy that day, so it's not like a gust could have blown it across either. I pass the spot I first saw it every time I come home from work, and it makes me wonder every time as to what the hell it was. Story by Any Chemical 42. Eyes I Knew. Stopped at a small vape shop before work and ran into a carbon copy of my ex. My ex has been my ex for a little over a year. We were together for 5 and lives 600 miles away. I moved away when we broke up. I haven't talked to him since ending the relationship. I saw this man pull into the parking lot in a blue truck, did a double take because it looked exactly like my ex, got out of the car, and went in. He came into the store behind me and walked off to my right and was about 15 feet away. I did notice that he kept his head turned away from me. Once I got a second look at him, I would have bet money that it was my ex, even with my glasses on. The relationship didn't end well, and there are many reasons that I moved so far away, so needless to say my adrenaline was pumping. I was shaking like a leaf and could not stop staring. After I finished my transaction as he was walking over, I apologized because he was very aware of my staring, and I wanted to explain myself. As I was talking to him, and since he was closer, I was able to see that he had the exact chipped tooth and wore the same exact glasses as my ex. Even after staring him in the face, I couldn't find any differences. The only difference was the lack of tattoos. My ex had a large tattoo on his right arm. The man was really nice, shook my hand, asked my name, and told me his. He lives less than a mile from me. My mind is literally blown. If I would have run into this person in my hometown, I would have not even spoken to him because there would have been no reason to believe that it wasn't him. I wouldn't even have questioned it. This man and my ex are the same person. Same stance, same gestures, same eyes, same smile, even down to how they were dressed, even the backwards baseball cap. The only difference was a slightly deeper voice. I'm also not convinced that it wasn't actually him. Like this guy didn't just resemble him or remind me of him. It was an exact copy, even standing a foot away from him looking in his eyes. All I kept saying to the guy was that it was uncanny, that I couldn't believe my eyes. He just chuckled and accepted my many apologies. Is this a glitch in the Matrix? Story by James Drayton, The Sea's Secret. I live in Thurso, Scotland, northernmost town in the UK. On the 15th of June, sometime between 10 and 11 p.m., I went for a walk along the town beach, since the summer days up here don't get dark until around 12 a.m. The sky was a really unique color, which was reflecting in the sea, and so I walked to the end of the pier to take some photos. Taking photos of the sea and sky, I suddenly noticed something protrude out of the water, maybe 10 to 15 meters ahead of me. My instant thought was that it was a seal, since there are always seals in the sea and town river. But when this thing protruded from the water, I was taken back by how long its body was. Although gray seals are around 5 to 8 feet long, this animal seemed a lot longer. I see seals in the water all the time, so I know the difference. The head of this animal almost appeared seal-like, except its snout looked longer and on first impression reminded me more of the head of a hippo, believe it or not. As soon as I see this animal in the water, I quickly try to take a photo of it, but by the time I did, it had begun to submerge beneath the water. Sadly, the animal was almost fully submerged by the time I took the photo, as it had only surfaced for around 5 seconds. Whatever this animal was, it had an extremely long seal-like body and an almost hippo-like head. Sounds ridiculous, I know. Although the waters here do have orcas and different dolphin species, this definitely wasn't that, as I saw no fins whatsoever. And no, it wasn't some floating object like a tree log. Although I waited around for the animal to resurface again, it sadly didn't. As far as I know, there are no alleged cryptids in the region, only fictional creatures from local folklore. However, after doing some Googling, I found out that young walrus bucks from the Arctic are sometimes spotted in North Scottish waters. However, this is extremely rare, like one spotted every 10 years. This could possibly explain the hippo-like head I saw. However, if there was a walrus in North Scottish waters recently, it would have been all over the local news. Whatever it was I saw, it definitely wasn't a seal. Body too long, head not the right shape. So my best logical guess is that it was an extremely rare walrus sighting, though not much evidence of that either. But in case this wasn't a walrus, I thought I should still post this, as it's the closest I've ever gotten to a cryptid sighting. Story by Valiant Freak. One date, please. I was driving home from a racetrack with a friend when my phone rang. This was 20 plus years ago, so mobile phones, especially in regional areas, were not as reliable. Anyway, I answered, but there was nobody there. I hung up, but the phone kept ringing, and each time there was nobody there. I figured somebody was trying unsuccessfully to call me, so seeing as we had nothing better to do on the long drive, we decided to figure out who the person was by reeling off a list of names and telling them, if they could hear us, to hang up when we got to their name. The girl who I had a crush on at the time was on the list, and when we got to her name, the phone hung up. Obviously, this could have been a coincidence, so when the phone rang again, we asked the caller a series of questions that only she would know the answer to, with the caller to hang up when we got to the correct answer. We read off many questions, and she got them all correct. This was definitely her. On a roll, we used this silly technique to set her up on a date with me by asking her where she wanted to go, followed by a series of options. What did she want me to bring? Drive-in and flowers, apparently. Eventually, the phone went flat, but I was feeling very pleased with myself, having set up a date with a cute girl. The next day, the girl down the road called me up and asked if I wanted to go for a run. We sometimes went for a run, but I hadn't spoken to her in a couple of weeks. I asked her if I should bring flowers, but she had no idea what I was talking about. When we met, I told her what had happened, and she denied having tried to call me the previous day. Furious at having been pranked, I called my mate and violently cursed him out in front of her, which shocked her. We ran that day in silence and never went on a run again. I lost a friend that day, as we never really spoke again. Obviously, I assumed that my mate in the car with me was involved at first. He was a notorious prankster, although he didn't own a mobile phone and had never pulled off a prank that would be considered cruel, like making your friend think he had a date when he didn't. Also, how could he have operated a mobile phone when I was sitting right next to him, watching him? There was another car full of friends we were following, but they were his friends, not mine, and I didn't know them well. They certainly didn't know me well enough to answer any of these questions. And deciding to interrogate the person on the other end of the phone was my idea. I still have no idea who, if anybody, was on the line that day. But seeing as the girl had earlier confessed that she liked me when she was drunk, but not single, maybe my life would have turned out differently if my phone hadn't have gone flat. You know, this is sad because of the aftermath, but I still feel like it's the universe trying to nudge you a certain way. Like, okay, this is a girl that you would connect really well with. Again, I don't believe in one soulmate. I believe in multiple compatible mates, you could say, that really align well with our soul. But just one, maybe there's one perfect soulmate, but I think even then, there's probably more than just a single human being out there that is perfect for you. And I just love stories where fate is played with. It's not really fate. It's just influence. This is something that could be good for you. Do you want to pursue it? Now, you're not told it as if this was information beyond the universe, beyond what you're supposed to know. You're only given instincts and emotions to act on. And obviously, only acting on emotion without any logic isn't good. But in cases of love, it's one of those things you have to learn that it's not always logical. Which can annoy me because I think I'm a pretty logical guy, but yeah, it's just one of those things you have to play around with and understand as you go along. Yeah, okay. Story by Hawk Both, 8539. A Strike Without Shape. So, this happened when I was a teenager, riding bikes with my friends, and I still don't have an explanation for it. We were just cruising, nothing special about the road, no traffic, normal day. And out of nowhere, I get absolutely clotheslined in the chest, like a full-on invisible bar. It knocked me straight off my bike, backwards, like I'd ridden into a tree branch at chest height. Except there were no trees or anything, nothing around me at all. And here's the part that still messes with me. If it really was some kind of branch or bar, it should have hit my arms first since they were out in front of me holding the handlebars. It skipped right past my arms and caught me square in the chest. My friends saw the whole thing, and they were freaking out just as much as I was. One of them said something like, "What the hell was that? It looked like you got super punched in the chest." And that's exactly what it felt like. We stood around confused as hell, and every single time we rode past that spot after that day, we'd slow down and look again. I was expecting it to happen again, but it never did. We never found anything that could explain it. To this day, I have no idea what hit me, only that something did, and it hit me exactly where a person would if I'd rode straight into them. Story by Near Emu. When the Factory Trembled. I own a large business that maintains 3 shifts of workers, 3 floors, 5,000 or 6,000 square feet each floor, and machinery all around. In 2014 or so, the power to the town was out from some storms, and I sent my employees home. Some of them stayed outside on the loading docks, and I was walking around the shop trying to figure out if I could get a generator to at least be able to perform some of my packing and shipping for the day. It was pitch black as I was going through, aside from a battery security light that really only created a very faint, vague shadowing of the area. But I've been in this place for 20 years. I can feel my way around well enough. I'm in the middle of a very silent. If you've ever been someplace that is 100% always sort of loud, you know how strange it is to be in that place. It's silent, it's weird, something is off, it's not right somehow. Building and machinery all around me. All of a sudden, a huge explosion rocks the building. It honestly dazes me and I startle wildly. My mind starts racing and I rush as best I can in the dark to get to the loading docks and find out what just happened. As I get toward the light, I can start jogging, and I get out there, and not a single person out there heard a thing. They are all just standing there, like nothing happened, and I ask what the hell that explosion was, and they look at me like I'm insane. It sometimes bothers me that it had to just be in my head. It rocked my entire body, and I literally felt the building shake, but it couldn't have actually happened in reality. Story by Gisasage88, In the Name of the Dark. In the early morning, when we were in our room with our cats and no one else was home, my husband and I heard what sounded like a woman walking quickly and purposefully into the kitchen, and then what sounded like our entire drying rack being thrown on the floor, then pot lids and Tupperware bouncing around on the floor. Scared the crap out of us and the cats. Then it sounded like things were being stacked back up on the counters and someone was quickly leaving the kitchen as we were throwing on our pajamas to investigate. Our room was right off the kitchen. Once we opened the door, nothing was out of place. Another time, while we were the only ones home, we were getting ready to watch a movie in the basement and heard slow creeping footsteps in the dining room above us. That one also scared the crap out of us. We've had 3 house sitters report odd sounds while watching the house. One thought we had gotten home early. Another thought the house had been broken into, and a third reported footsteps on the floors he wasn't on. When I was pregnant, and we had shifted our room to the upstairs, I was super tired and slept a couple extra hours a day. One early but dark evening, I woke up and thought I heard my husband creeping around in the dark on the other end of the room. I thought he was trying to be quiet because he still thought I was asleep, so I called out his name. No response, but I still heard someone walking in the dark and even heard the handle on my old travel trunk organizer distinctly lift and drop. I called out his name again. No response. I heard steps getting closer, but I couldn't see him. That's when I panicked and called his phone. I told him to throw all the lights on and come upstairs. The sound ceased and I saw nothing, unfortunately. A few years later, my daughter was a toddler, and everyone had left the house for a music gig except for me and her because she was sick. I was working in the attic office space and had her bundled in blankets on a chair next to me. Suddenly I heard noise downstairs like someone was home. To be honest, I ignored it. I figured someone had forgotten something for the gig and had come back to retrieve it. Then I heard someone yell up the stairwell, "Hello." It sounded sort of like one of the band members, so again thinking something had been forgotten, I just yelled, "Hello," back. I heard no response, so I figured they were just letting me know they were there. Great survival skills, right? Several minutes went by, and then I heard the door to the attic stairs open and close again. This was weird because it had sounded like whoever was there earlier had left. I heard some sounds of someone on the stairs. Then I heard a male voice call out my daughter's first name. I got up and went to the stairwell and no one was there. I had heard the door open and close and heard someone on the stairs, but when I went to check, the door was closed and no one was there. I tried to forget about it, but a couple minutes later I distinctly heard my daughter's middle name said in the male voice. This time it seemed up in the room near us. She looked around in a way that makes me think she heard it too. I called my husband. Luckily, he was only helping with setup and could come home early. I left my daughter on the chair, grabbed the biggest pair of scissors I could find, and inspected the upstairs and then the downstairs. It seemed we were alone. There have been a few more moments with odd bumps or noise bursts in the house, but these were the most memorable, and our house does have carbon monoxide detectors. We've lived here for 15 years. We figured events seem to take place every 6 months to 2 years or so. My parents briefly lived in a 1800s house for 3 years, and that place had way more odd happenings on average than this house. Apparently, a lot of their guests were a bit freaked out by it, and they had 2 upstairs guest rooms that were side by side with each other that seemed to get the biggest brunt of it. They also had lots of carbon monoxide detectors. My dad worked firefighting for a bit and was super big on that stuff. Story by DewMilk352. Chips for 3. I've experienced similar things a couple of times now, but today's event is truly unexplainable. So I went to a grocery store earlier today. I only had to buy chips because somehow I forgot those earlier and we had a big gathering tonight. I was going to get 3 bags of chips, and I got 3. Went to the register and paid for them. I went back to my car and put them on the passenger seat. I had a doctor's appointment afterwards, so that's where I went. When I got back to my car, after the appointment, I noticed that there were only 2 bags now. Weird. Maybe one fell under the seat? Nope, checked literally everywhere in the car. And the chip bags were pretty big, it's not easy to miss them. Okay, maybe I accidentally bought 2 bags instead of 3? Checked the receipt. I paid for 3 bags. I was already weirded out, but I drove home, got the 2 bags out of the car and to the house. Left them out on the kitchen counter as I was about to start preparing everything. Went upstairs to wash my hands and change. Went back downstairs and somehow there were now 3 bags on the kitchen counter. We had no chips at home beforehand, and I was the only one home when this happened. So my favorite story has to be the potential prank, but probably not, of potential romance. With the date, please. It's so funny. I love true romance stories, especially when they're exceptional, like as a glitch, but not really fictional romance stories. I don't know what's going on there, but there you go. Now time for the jokes. A weasel goes into a bar. The bartender says, "Interesting. I've never served a weasel before. What can I get you?" Pop goes the weasel. God. I can't. I just read that someone in New York gets stabbed every 52 seconds. Poor guy. Yeah, it was just one guy that they have affixed the New York Times Times Square building or whatever. That'd be, it's like those warning signs for pirates. Like in the Pirates of the Caribbean, where they're just, there's a rock face as ships sail through. It's like pirates beware. I don't know what this guy did, but something beware. Thieves beware or something. I don't know. I was walking down the street this morning when I was suddenly hit by a violin, a clarinet, and a French horn. I think it was an orchestrated attack. Why doesn't Ronaldo ever have to clean his room? Because he's not messy. I think this is a soccer guy. I'm not really into sports or follow it much, but even I came across it, just via the natural internet, you could say. My son came up to me crying. "I'm getting bullied at school, Dad. The children think I'm arrogant." "Are they in your class?" he asked. "No, I'm much better than them, obviously." Well, maybe they have a point. Still shouldn't bully, but, take it down a peg. All right, more glitches up here somewhere, and check them out, and I'll see you next time. Okay.